What makes a team unstoppable? It's not talent alone, not strategy alone, not even leadership alone. The secret lies in the everyday choices of the people inside the teammates. In every workplace, in every project, in every dream, there are moments when one person's attitude can lift everyone higher or drag everyone down. And here's the truth. You don't have to be the smartest, the fastest, or the most experienced to be the most valuable. You just have to be the kind of teammate who transforms the room. That's the power behind Michael G. Rogers' book, You Are the Team. It's not a manual filled with cliches, it's a wake-up call. 6 simple but powerful principles that turn ordinary teammates into extraordinary ones. Serve, be humble, be honest, be committed, be respectful, be self-improving. These aren't just words, they are the difference between a team that collapses under pressure and a team that rises together. And in this video, we're going to break down each principle with real-life examples, cinematic commentary, and lessons you can carry into your own life. If you've ever wondered why some teams thrive while others fall apart, if you've ever wanted to be the person who makes the difference, then don't skip a second of this journey. Because by the end, you'll see that greatness isn't about being the star, it's about being the teammate who makes everyone shine. Serving is the first principle of being a great teammate. And it is also the most misunderstood, because in a world that glorifies self-promotion, serving feels like weakness, like sacrifice, like giving away your power. But in truth, it is the opposite. Serving is the hidden strength that makes teams unstoppable. Think about the workplace. Deadlines looming, projects piling up, everyone drowning in their own responsibilities, and yet there is always one person who chooses to stay late, not because they have to, but because they see a teammate struggling and they decide to help. That moment of service changes everything. It lifts the weight off someone's shoulders, it builds trust, it creates momentum, and it reminds the team that they are not alone. Serving is not about being a hero, it is about being human, about recognizing that your success is tied to the success of those around you. And here's the paradox. When you serve, you don't lose time, you gain influence. You don't lose energy, you gain respect. You don't lose progress, you gain loyalty. Serving is the quiet power that transforms a group of individuals into a team. And yet, most people resist it. They say, I don't have time to help, or that's not my job, or I need to focus on my own work. But here's the truth. Refusing to serve doesn't protect your progress, it isolates it. You may finish your task, but you lose the trust of your team. You may hit your deadline, but you weaken the bond that holds the group together. Serving is not about doing everything for everyone. It is about choosing moments where your effort can lift others higher, where your presence can make the difference between failure and success. And here's where the shift begins. Strengthening the mind doesn't erase your workload. It doesn't cancel your deadlines, but it changes the way you carry service. Instead of seeing it as sacrifice, you begin to see it as investment. Instead of seeing it as weakness, you begin to see it as strength. Instead of seeing it as distraction, you begin to see it as connection. And when you carry service differently, you begin to reclaim your power. You stop seeing yourself as just an employee and start seeing yourself as a teammate, someone who can shape the way the group lives, someone who can define priorities, someone who can build discipline even in the middle of chaos. Because serving may feel costly, but it doesn't have to bankrupt your spirit. It may take time, but it doesn't have to erase your progress. It may require effort, but it doesn't have to silence your truth. And when you learn to carry service with clarity, you begin to see opportunities where before there were only walls. You begin to notice that even in the shadow of deadlines, there is space for growth, for discipline, for strength. Serving is real, and so is the power of the mind. And that is how you transform service from sacrifice into strength, how you turn effort into influence, how you reclaim your own life from the shadow of isolation. The writer says that humility is one of the most powerful traits of a great teammate, yet it is often misunderstood. In a world that rewards ego and self-promotion, humility can look like weakness, but in reality, it is the foundation of trust. The writer explains that when a teammate admits they might be wrong, or when a leader openly acknowledges a mistake, the atmosphere of the entire team changes. Conflict softens, collaboration begins, and the focus shifts from winning arguments to winning together. Humility, the writer says, is not about lowering yourself. It is about lifting others. It is about creating space for voices that might otherwise be silenced and recognizing that your perspective is valuable but not absolute. And here's where the commentary comes alive. Imagine a heated meeting where everyone is defending their ideas, voices rising, tension thick in the air. Then one person pauses and says, "I may not have the full answer." That moment disarms the room. It invites others to step in. It shows vulnerability as strength, and it reminds the team that progress is collective. The writer insists that humility doesn't strip you of authority. It multiplies your respect. It doesn't erase your influence. It deepens your trust. It doesn't weaken your power. It strengthens your connection. And yet, many resist humility, fearing that admitting weakness will damage their image. But the writer warns, protecting pride often isolates you. You may win the argument, but you lose the team. You may guard your ego, but you weaken the bond that holds the group together. Humility, carried differently, becomes wisdom. It transforms silence into influence, vulnerability into connection, and pride into growth. The writer says that when you learn to carry humility with clarity, you begin to see opportunities where before there were only walls. Even in the shadow of ego, there is space for discipline, resilience, and strength. Humility is real, and it is the quiet power that turns individuals into a team. The writer says that honesty is the lifeblood of a great team, because without truth, trust cannot survive. Teams collapse not because of lack of talent, but because of hidden agendas, gossip, and silence where there should be transparency. The writer explains that honesty is not just about telling the truth when asked. It is about choosing transparency even when it is uncomfortable, even when it risks conflict, even when it exposes weakness. And here's where the commentary comes alive. Imagine a workplace where rumors spread faster than facts, where teammates whisper in corners instead of speaking openly, where problems are hidden until they explode. That is the slow death of a team. Now imagine instead a teammate who chooses courage over comfort, who says in the middle of a tense meeting, "Here's what I see, and here's what I feel." That moment of honesty may sting, but it clears the air. It replaces suspicion with clarity. It replaces gossip with truth. It replaces silence with progress. The writer insists that honesty doesn't destroy relationships. Dishonesty does. Honesty doesn't weaken teams. Dishonesty does. Honesty doesn't slow progress. Dishonesty does. And yet, many resist honesty, fearing the truth will make them unpopular, fearing that transparency will expose them. But the writer warns, hiding the truth doesn't protect you, it isolates you. You may avoid conflict, but you lose respect. You may protect your image, but you weaken the bond that holds the group together. Honesty, carried differently, becomes courage. It transforms discomfort into trust, conflict into clarity, and vulnerability into strength. The writer says that when you learn to carry honesty with discipline, you begin to see opportunities where before there were only shadows. Even in the face of fear, there is space for growth, for resilience, for connection. Honesty is real, and it is the quiet courage that turns individuals into a team. The writer says that commitment is the glue that holds a team together, because talent without commitment is wasted, and ideas without commitment collapse. The writer explains that being committed means showing up fully, keeping promises, and following through even when it is inconvenient, even when it is exhausting, even when no one is watching. Commitment, the writer says, is not about grand gestures. It is about consistency, about the small daily choices that prove reliability. And here's where the commentary comes alive. Imagine a teammate who always arrives early, who always delivers on time, who always follows through, even when they are tired, even when they are burned out. That consistency builds trust. It tells the team, you can count on me. Now imagine the opposite, a teammate who is brilliant but unreliable, who starts strong but disappears when things get hard. That brilliance becomes irrelevant because without commitment, talent cannot be trusted. The writer insists that commitment is the discipline that separates good teammates from great ones. It is the difference between a team that collapses under pressure and a team that rises together. And yet, many resist commitment, fearing that consistency will trap them, fearing that discipline will limit them. But the writer warns, avoiding commitment doesn't protect your freedom, it erodes your credibility. You may keep your options open, but you lose the trust of your team. You may protect your comfort, but you weaken the bond that holds the group together. Commitment, carried differently, becomes strength. It transforms exhaustion into resilience, inconvenience into reliability, and discipline into freedom. The writer says that when you learn to carry commitment with clarity, you begin to see opportunities where before there were only burdens. Even in the shadow of fatigue, there is space for growth, for discipline, for strength. Commitment is real, and it is the quiet discipline that turns individuals into a team. The writer says that respect is the invisible currency of every team, because without it, communication breaks down, trust evaporates, and conflict becomes poison. Respect, the writer explains, is not about agreeing with everyone. It is about treating everyone with dignity, even when you disagree, even when you are frustrated, even when emotions run high. The writer says that respect is the difference between a team that argues productively and a team that collapses into hostility. And here's where the commentary comes alive. Imagine a meeting where voices are raised, tempers flare, and the room feels like it might explode. Then one person chooses calm, chooses kindness, chooses to listen before speaking. That single act of respect changes the tone of the entire room. It doesn't erase disagreement, but it transforms it into dialogue. It doesn't silence conflict, but it channels it into progress. The writer insists that respect is not weakness, it is strength, because it takes discipline to stay calm when emotions are burning. It takes courage to listen when you want to shout. It takes wisdom to treat others with dignity even when you feel disrespected yourself. And yet, many resist respect, believing that kindness will make them look soft, believing that calmness will make them look passive. But the writer warns, disrespect doesn't make you strong, it makes you isolated. You may win the argument, but you lose the team. You may dominate the conversation, but you weaken the bond that holds the group together. Respect, carried differently, becomes power. It transforms conflict into clarity, disagreement into dialogue, and tension into trust. The writer says that when you learn to carry respect with discipline, you begin to see opportunities where before there were only battles. Even in the shadow of anger, there is space for growth, for resilience, for strength. Respect is real, and it is the quiet power that turns individuals into a team. The writer says that the final mark of a great teammate is the willingness to grow, because teams stagnate when individuals stop learning, and progress dies when people believe they already know enough. The writer explains that self-improvement is not about chasing perfection, it is about choosing growth, about seeking feedback even when it hurts, about turning failure into fuel instead of shame. The writer says that the best teammates are not the ones who never make mistakes, but the ones who learn from them, who adapt, who evolve. And here's where the commentary comes alive. Imagine a teammate who fails on a big project, who could easily hide, blame others, or retreat into silence. Instead, they walk into the room and say, "Tell me what I can do better." That moment of humility and hunger for growth transforms failure into progress. It shows the team that mistakes are not the end, they are the beginning. The writer insists that self-improvement is not optional, it is essential, because a team cannot rise higher than the growth of its members. And yet, many resist it, fearing that feedback will expose their flaws, fearing that change will erase their comfort. But the writer warns, refusing growth doesn't protect you, it imprisons you. You may avoid discomfort, but you lose potential. You may protect your pride, but you weaken the bond that holds the group together. Self-improvement, carried differently, becomes strength. It transforms failure into wisdom, feedback into fuel, and discomfort into resilience. The writer says that when you learn to carry growth with clarity, you begin to see opportunities where before there were only limits. Even in the shadow of mistakes, there is space for discipline, for resilience, for strength. Self-improvement is real, and it is the quiet discipline that turns individuals into a team. The writer says that greatness in teams is never about one person. It is about the choices of every teammate. And when those choices align, serving, being humble, being honest, being committed, being respectful, and being self-improving, the team becomes unstoppable. And here's the truth. These principles are not complicated, but they are rare, because most people choose ego over humility, comfort over commitment, silence over honesty, and isolation over service. The writer reminds us that the difference between a team that collapses and a team that thrives is not talent, it is character. And now the choice is yours. Will you be the teammate who drags the group down or the one who lifts everyone higher? If this commentary has opened your eyes, don't let it end here. Carry these principles into your own life, into your own work, into your own relationships. And if you want to go deeper, read the book You Are the Team by Michael G. Rogers. The link is in the description. Support the channel by grabbing your copy through the affiliate link and join me in building a community of teammates who refuse to settle for average. Subscribe if you haven't already, share this video with someone who needs it, and leave a comment about which principle hit you hardest. Because the writer says that teams rise when teammates rise, and together we can rise higher.